My name is Karin Larkin. I'm assistant professor in anthropology and museum studies, and my research focus is mainly archaeology, but particularly archaeology in the public and museum curation. My more current research project, I'm actually doing an archaeology project on the UCCS campus. And we're creating a historic preservation plan for campus because there's 42 recorded archaeological sites on campus, and those relate to the sort of indigenous population before sort of Western encroachment onto the area, but also sites that relate to the development of Colorado Springs in general as well. So recently I've been looking at the tuberculosis sanatorium and looking at archaeology related to that, which has been very interesting because there are a lot of parallels that we see right now between the current COVID pandemic and the way that they treated tuberculosis in the sort of early to mid 1900s. So for that research project, we're sort of looking at some of these alternative healthcare practices that they practiced at the sanatorium, and particularly focusing on the Navajo era of the sanatorium, which was in the 1950s, when the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare partnered with the Navajo Nation to treat Navajo patients at TB sanatoriums that were off of the Navajo reservation. And Cragmore Sanatorium was one of those that contracted with Navajo Nation and worked with the Navajo Council chairwoman who was in charge of health and education at the time. Her name was Annie Winnetka, and they sort of established some health practices, so for physical treatment, but also education programs for Navajo women here at the sanatorium. So my research really, sort of the common threads in there have to do with looking at sort of public archaeology, so archaeology and how it relates to, relating it to contemporary issues, and also looking at generally marginalized or silenced sort of people in history, stories that you don't typically hear in the historic record. Archaeology allows us to sort of give them some voice and find out what their daily lives were like. As part of the historic preservation plan that we're creating for campus, we've been doing tribal consultation with tribes that have ties to the campus area, Colorado Springs in general, but the campus area specifically. And we've been taking them to sites that we've been identifying and asking them for feedback on how to better take care of those sites. And so some of the suggestions that the tribes have made for us include one of the things that people like to do is if they come across sort of like rock circles, they like to create cairns in the middle of them to help, mark where they are or mark trails. Or one of the other things that people really seem to enjoy doing is collecting lithic flakes for us and piling them up on a nearby boulder so that we can see sort of all of the the broad range of lithic flakes that everyone's found. And while people might not think that this is problematic, it does cause problems for us, and it offends the tribes when people are sort of just manipulating or even destroying those features, because those features tend to have cultural significance for them. So the tribes have asked us to relay to people if people could not do some of those types of activities because they find them offensive. So there are a couple things that you need to know about archaeology, and particularly historic archaeology. Historic archaeology is a great tool for looking at the past and looking at things that aren't generally recorded in the past, because history tends to be a little biased. They tend to write down, the successes and gloss over the failures. So one of the great things about archaeology is it allows us to look at sort of a more complete picture to help us learn from the past so that we can navigate the present, so that we can learn from our mistakes and figure out ways to sort of apply those to contemporary issues, like how are we going to navigate COVID? What are some strategies that were successful in the past, or where were there failures in the past that we don't want to repeat? The other thing about archaeology is that people are really interested in archaeology. Archaeology is a super interesting and fun occupation. I love doing it. The thing with archaeology is that other people love doing it as well, which can be problematic for us professional archaeologists, because people tend to find things like projectile points or features or historic bottles out on the landscape, and they're fascinated by them and they want to pick them up and take them home. And when they do that, we lose all the context of what those artifacts could tell us, because we need to know sort of where they were found, the things that they were found in relation to, and if there's sort of other clues around. And when people remove those, then we lose all those clues. We also lose, sort of the artifacts themselves, right? We lose that evidence. And archaeology it's kind of a non-renewable resource, if we want to think about it like that. We are always producing new trash, new artifacts, new features, things like this, houses or whatever. But the ones from the past, once they're gone, once they're removed, they're gone. We can't learn anything more from them. So one of the things that I really try to stress for people who are interested in archaeology is that we love the interest and we love people finding new artifacts and new features and letting us know about those. But if they could not pick them up and bring them to us or take them home, if they could take a photograph and maybe mark, everybody has a phone that's geo-referenced now, mark where you found it and let us know, then we can go out there and actually really learn some stuff about the past, and it's useful for us. One of the things I really love about doing archaeology here on campus and in the area is that I get to include my students, my undergraduate students, quite a bit in that research, and watching them learn about the history of the campus and the history of Colorado Springs, but also about sort of how they can apply that to whatever it is that they want to do when they graduate from college. These skills that we teach in archaeology are really skills that teach people how to do research and how to do things like critical thinking and investigating the past, and how can we apply these to solve problems, right? And so one of the things I love is watching the students sort of experience this and learn from it. And then I love watching them move out into graduate school or their careers and apply these things, and hearing back from them to find out what it is that they're doing is just so exciting for me.